This time there is no violence.
From then
Turn back.
to now. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy of nonviolent protesting lives on. To get a better understanding of how the die-ins of today compare to the sit-ins of yesteryear, I took a trip to Atlanta's Center for Civil and Human Rights. The center's Latasha Smith provided the history lesson.
So in the 1950s, you also had the death of Emmett Till and how that really sparked the civil rights movement because people were outraged that this young black boy was killed for allegations that were untrue and false, and his murder being so unjust and so brutal at the time.
Till's death pushed King and others to develop more unified strategies of protest. That included the bus boycotts and the lunch counter sit-ins across the South.
And so we have the Greensboro sit-in at the Woolworth lunch counter, and that's in the 1960s where students at North Carolina A&T sat down at white-only counters to protest the segregation that was taking place there.
Sit-ins like these were conducted by college students. They endured racial slurs and physical violence just for the right to sit at the whites-only counters. The sit-in movement was a precursor to the March on Washington. The march inspired many with its peaceful show of solidarity and amazing speeches. But its leaders wanted more.
What was the strategy behind it? What were they fighting for? What specifically did they want?
So the March on Washington was all about jobs and freedom and equality. And what a lot of people don't know is that there were a set of 10 demands that were created and that were drafted up that the protesters wanted to achieve. At the time, many African Americans were making less than $2 an hour, so fair minimum wage.
Though much has been accomplished since the march, at the time, opposition to change persisted, and so did violence. The Birmingham church bombing, Bloody Sunday,
Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight, remember?
And the murder of the movement's leader set the country on fire.
What's the connection or the comparison that you see between what happened at this time versus the protests that we've seen in Ferguson and around the country, around the world, really?
We still see today people really pushing for peaceful protests. But then again, we also have the language of riots as the voice of the unheard, and that really illustrates, whether related or not related to the Ferguson events, individuals that are lashing out because of those frustrations.
Protesters these days have more than just a stage and a mic. Their voices are now spread far and wide through social media and art.
We've seen the work of Dr. King and others during the civil rights movement in the 50s and the 60s to where we are today, seeing protest again, but in a different kind of way. So tell me about the newest exhibit that is here at the museum.
So this exhibition that was done by Baltimore-based muralist Gaia. And so what we have here is based on the hashtag If They Gunned Me Down. And it's basically the actual tweets that people after Ferguson put up highlighting, if they gunned me down, how would the media portray me?
Though the methods of organization and delivery are changing, the modern era meets lessons from the past, still championed by Dr. King's push for nonviolent resistance through tweets, murals, and marches too.